Hi everyone, and welcome to another really interesting topic brought to you by Legal Reach Out. So before I start, I would like to remind you to subscribe to this channel so that you're not left out on any future uploads. I'd also like to direct you to go to Facebook, just type in Legal Reach Out and then follow that Facebook page. Well, that's where we'll be posting most of our information, articles, and many lessons that we cannot post in videos. So, just a very, very good news before we go on. 2021 will be publishing a journal, and this journal will be incorporating certain articles coming from you, the people out there. So if you want your article to be incorporated in our journal, just go on Facebook, you'll find the instructions right there, and then you can send. So let's get into the topic of the day. Okay, so today's topic is something that has been brought into existence, through this video, because it's something that we've been pushing through for so many times. Being that Legal Reach Out is a page that is made of information, of advocacy, teaching people about the laws and the rights that they have. So we became so concerned after analyzing the current state with regards to human rights in our country, in particular Zambia. So we decided to start this journey. It's going to be a very long journey, but short if everyone comes on board and helps us send this message. So we are appealing to everyone to just come on board and then join us into preaching this message. We've kind of observed that the reason why many Zambians have having their rights being infringed, it's because they don't really know which rights they are conferred with. So we'll get to talk about the rights which are entitled onto every Zambian and every person who is residing in Zambia. So this long journey will be talking about human rights. So because it's going to be a long journey, today we'll just get to introduce what we'll be talking about in this long journey. And please subscribe so that you're not left out on the next lesson, because that's what we'll be talking about, the important stuff. We'll be gluing all those things which are supposed to be glued. So, don't be left out. It's going to be very interesting. So our main aim is to equip everyone with the knowledge of the law. And by that I mean, we should equip you with the understanding of the law. We should make you know your negative duty and your positive duties. So we'll get to talk about the rights. So it's something that we decided to have because of the rising numbers and these human rights issues, human rights violations. So we'll get to talk about them. This is going to be very interesting, I assure you. So first and foremost, just a snippet. What are human rights? So basically, human rights are rights that are entitled on every human being by virtue of them being human beings. So many people tend to confuse human rights with rights. Well, these two are very different. So if we talk about a right can be an entitlement, a claim, a negative duty or positive duty entitled on a person. It can also be an immunity that is entitled on a person. So for example, Article 97 of the Constitution of Zambia, which confers the president with a discretionary power to pardon a person who's been convicted of a certain offense to be released from prison. That is a right, but not a human right. So a human right is basically a right that is accrued or entitled on a person by virtue of them being human beings. So if you're a human being, you are entitled to human rights. If you're a human being, you are entitled to human rights, but not the discretionary power entitled to the president. That is a right that is specifically meant for the president. So the president has a right to exercise the prerogative of mercy, but not any person. So I'm sure you've gotten the difference between human rights and rights. Rights entitled to a particular person, they tend to mention if it's the minister, it's more like discretions if it's the minister or the president. I gave an example, Article 97, the Constitution of Zambia, and then human rights. So with reference to Article 11, which provides for introducing the freedoms and fundamental human rights. So Article 11 of the Constitution of Zambia, referred to as the Bill of Rights. So we'll get to talk about that. So human rights have different characteristics. So human rights are, they have a characteristic which is they are inherent. So, this is something that is so good about human rights, because they are entitled on every person by from the time of birth. So they are a birthright of every human being. So the time you're born, conception, you are in the womb, you're protected by these human rights. We'll get to talk about the human rights that are entitled to unborn children. So even those children who are not yet born but are in the womb, or should I say infants, infants, they're protected by the law. So they are inherent. They are a birthright of every human being. Human rights are also universal, so they apply to all human beings without distinction. That's the very, very good thing about human rights. They are unlike rights, so they are applied to all human beings without distinction. You cannot say Article 97 applies to all human beings without distinction, or Article 97 is inherent, So human rights are also inalienable. They cannot be taken away from an individual. So you cannot take away human rights from an individual. But we'll get to talk about limitations to certain human rights which have, which can be taken away for a certain time, or permanently, something like that. We'll get to talk about them in the later video. And then human rights are interdependent. So, for example, violating one right ultimately affects the other. So if you violate the right to health, you also violate the right to life on a human being. So every human being has a right to life. So if you violate their right to health, you are hindering their health, which might result into death. So meaning you are also violating their right to life. So that is what is meant by interdependent. They cannot be separated. They're actually existing together. They coexist. So violating one of them ultimately affects the other rights. So that is basically the snippet of that. So there are basically three categories of human rights, which are the first generation, which is the civil and political rights; the second generation, which is the economic, social, and cultural rights; the third generation, which are termed as collective rights or group rights. So these are the main rights that we'll be discussing in the next few days. But today we just wanted you to know that we will be having, it's so sad, I know, it's really sad, but we will be posting tutorials and many other things with regards to human rights in Zambia. So please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Just create a chain of telling each other so that everyone knows, and we all learn about human rights. Because the more you know that you're protected, the lesser chance of your rights being violated. So it's best that you know your law and you know the rights entitled on you. Yeah, basically that. Although it's so sad that I have to go away, I know I feel sad too. So yeah, see you next time, and please subscribe to this channel.